Good morning. Today we're going to be talking about how to move your child into a British boarding school. We'll be meeting 6 teenagers who joined British boarding schools from overseas, and we'll talk to them about why they chose to attend a British school, how they settled in, and how their parents support them. In the second half, we're exploring practical arrangements with experts from Barratt London, Rosecut, and Charles Russell Speechlys, who'll be discussing the practicalities of parental support. So first, we turn to Millfield School in Somerset, where James Postle will be introducing us to two boarders.
Hi, morning, Guy. Welcome from Somerset here. It's a nice sunny day. It's always sunny in Somerset. Well, it seems to be we're enjoying some good weather today. I'm delighted that we've got Jasper, who's in year 9. And he originally lived in Hong Kong, although his parents have now moved here. And Rainbow is in our lower 6th, and she originally lived in Delhi, in India. So I'll hand them over to you, Guy, to a chat.
Brilliant. So let's start with you, Jasper. What age did you join Millfield?
So I came over from Hong Kong and joined Millfield Prep in year 8. And then I finished that and went over to Millfield Senior School in year 9, which I am in.
Okay, so you were 12 when you first came?
Yes, I was.
Yeah. And what about you, Rainbow?
I joined this year, so I'm joined when I was 16.
Right, and what? So let's start with some basic questions. Like, what kind of schools were you in before?
I was in a private international school in New Delhi.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Jasper?
I was in like a private but public school in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm. And so, if you compare what your schools were like before to what Millfield's like, do you want to just give us a picture? Like, were they in the country, in the city? Did you have big playing fields? How about you, Rainbow? You go first.
Yeah, my school was in central Delhi, so it was right in the city. It was definitely a lot smaller than Millfield. The space was a lot smaller. There were less students there as well because it was primary and secondary combined, so it was a lot smaller than what Millfield is.
Yeah, my school was completely different because even though it was in Hong Kong, it was on a bit of a mountain, which meant it had no fields. It was just a big building with lots and lots of floors stacked up.
So was it like a tower block?
Yeah, it was. They had 3 towers, and on top of every tower there was like a astro.
Right. So very urban then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it couldn't be more different from Millfield, either of you. And were you day students at your previous school?
Yeah, I was a day student. There was actually no boarding at the school that I was in.
Yeah, same for me.
Okay, so let's start with boarding then. So what made you want to come and be a boarder in the UK?
Definitely the fact that they didn't offer A levels where I was in Delhi. They did IB, and I wanted to move on and do A levels. And also Millfield was just a place that kind of fit me in terms of like the music department and the sports departments are incredible. So it was definitely somewhere that I wanted to go and move on to.
How about you, Jasper?
I wanted to join Millfield because, as you could tell, my school was very urban, and I never actually had a feel what it would be like to live in a big campus on a countryside with no surrounding big cities. So it's just school, which was a good opportunity.
And did you know people who'd been at boarding school, or was it a completely new thing?
I actually have an older brother which I followed into the school, and my best friend, he's got an older brother too, which came with mine. So yeah.
Yeah, I knew students that were already here at Millfield, so they kind of helped with making my decision to move here and also settling down here at school as well.
And in your head, I mean, like, had you watched Harry Potter and things? Did you have an idea of like what you thought it was going to be like?
Yeah, definitely. There was always something in my head with in terms of what boarding school was going to be like, as in like, I don't know, it was just very like Harry Potter style in my head, which it's not like. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought boarding school was it was one building the whole school, and you've got like a wing of just boarding rooms and everything. That's what I thought it was.
Okay, so what was it actually like? Let's start with you, Jasper. Like, did you come into a dormitory, or do you have your own bedroom, or?
So in year 8, we actually shared a dorm with 4 people, which gave a sense of that it's a bit more whelming in year 8 because they want to allow you to get more friends. So yeah. And then I joined year 9. You've got 2 rooms, so you can focus on your studies but also make lots of friends. So yeah.
Yeah, and being in the sixth form in my house as a lower 6th, I've had my own room, so I've been in a single, but then I've also shared as well with one other person, which gives us time to spend together and stuff. And then you've obviously got the common rooms where we can all sit and chill out.
And how did you find kind of starting boarding? Was it difficult, or?
It was definitely difficult at the start, like moving away from family overseas and stuff. But in Millfield, there's so many children that have moved from overseas, so you will connect in the same way, and you can all be there to support each other and stuff. And I think the staff and students are very good in helping you settle down in school and helping you kind of move forwards with everything and helping you.
Yeah, for me, it was the exact same experience, except when I joined, I just felt homesick because I knew I had my older brother about 5k away from me, which was very reassuring.
And what about family? How often do you see your family?
I usually see my family in majority of the holidays. So Easter break, winter break, half terms, I do fly back to go and see my family. Or during summer, they usually come over to the UK because of term dates. They usually finish a lot earlier than I do. So they usually fly over. So I see them quite a lot.
Yeah, for me, it was completely different because Hong Kong, when I moved here, it was in complete lockdown. You had to quarantine for 3 weeks, so I only got to see them on the major holidays like Christmas, Easter, and summer break.
So you went. So what did you do at half term?
I went and stayed with my grandma and grandparents.
Right, that was handy. And were they nearby, or?
They're about an hour and a half from here, so
Okay, so not too bad.
not too bad.
And so you're both in school for quite long periods of time, aren't you? I mean, like you're doing a term at a time, Jasper, and remember you're doing half term at a time. Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, not anymore for me because last year at Christmas, my parents and my family moved actually over here.
Oh, okay,
Now they're living down at Sandbanks, which is nice.
brilliant. So not too far at all, really. Then.
Not too far. Still an hour and a half.
Mm. And how about you, Remy? So you're doing like half term at a time. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. I go home depending on how long the half terms are. So 2-week half term, I go back to Delhi. A week half term, though, I would usually go to London to stay with my sister or any family. But yeah, I usually go term times, half terms. Yeah.
Okay, so your family have a place in London as well.
Yeah, I've got older siblings as well, so who have finished uni. So I just go and stay with them if I can't get back to Delhi.
That's really handy. Quite a lot of families, overseas families, do that, don't they? I mean,
Yeah.
they have a base here as well as wherever they happen to live. And do you what about kind of day-to-day contact? Do you use FaceTime or?
Yeah. I message my parents all day, every day. I call them because of time difference. It is 4.5 hours in front of here, so I try to call them during my lunches because that's when my parents have finished work or when my little sister's at home. So it's the most convenient time. So I usually call them during lunch, but I do call them every day.
How about you, Jasper?
Yeah, so my dad is actually still working in Hong Kong, so I can call him between maybe 8 when we get our phones, 12, and I can call my mum when I want, which I normally do every 2 days.
And what do you plan to do next? Remo, you came here for A-levels. What's your plan after that?
I definitely want to go to uni. I want to go to university and study criminology, but then maybe do music on the side because music's what is my hobby and what I want to do as well.
And at a UK university or?
Yeah, UK university, I think.
What about you, Jasper? It's probably a bit early for you, but have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to GCSEs next year actually, so I'm planning on doing geography and some other stuff, but my main one I want to focus on is DT, which I like.
And how have you found the weather?
It's very different to 45 degrees. Colder, wetter, not very sunny. I mean, comes out when it wants to, but it's very different to 45-degree heat every single day. It is cloudy outside. There was a bit of sun this morning. Yeah,
it's a big change from Hong Kong where it's about 30 to 50 sometimes, and it's either rainy in the morning, sunny in the afternoon, then rainy back again, or you don't know really what the weather's going to be like any day, which is quite a good surprise.
Okay, and the last question then, before we go over to Cheltenham, do you like boarding? Are you glad you've done it?
I'm really glad I've done it. I think, I love boarding. I think the friendships that you make and the bonds you build during boarding are so strong, and they're bonds that will last you for so long in life. You make so many connections. The people that you board with are always there for you through everything, which is really nice, and they're always there to support you and be there for you. And I think that's what I really love about boarding.
Yeah, for me it gives me a sense like that they're close, they're like family, because we're all under the same roof in the same building and in the same school.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for spending some time talking to us. And I hope you hang on and hear what the other boarders have got to say about their school. So now, if you'd like to turn your camera off and mute, Cheltenham. Thank you. Goodbye. And Cheltenham, if you'd like to turn your camera on and mute and unmute. And we've got two students. Cheltenham, you're going to introduce yourself, I think, aren't you?
Yeah, hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm 17 and I moved to England from Barbados, and this is my 4th year at Cheltenham.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm 15. I'm in 4th form here at Cheltenham, and I came over from Hong Kong.
Okay, great. So we're going to ask you the same question about the schools you were in before. So perhaps you could both, you could start, Rebecca, by telling us about school in Barbados, what that was like.
It was very different. It was a day school in the middle of like the main town. It was very like chilled out, but also it was like the top school in the island based on academics. But it was pretty much the same thing every day, just go in at 7, come out at 2. Like there wasn't really much to it.
And I'm guessing it wasn't on top of a tower, not like the school in Hong Kong. What were the buildings like in the ground?
It was quite old buildings. It was really big. It had massive like playing fields and stuff with the really old buildings. Quite nice.
Did it have any borders, or was it all day?
No, it was completely day. There's no boarding schools in Barbados.
Mm-hmm. And Jamie, how is school in Hong Kong?
It's very different to how it is here. It's more like most of the schools are day schools, so boarding is quite rare to find, and there's not as many facilities, I would say, as there would be here, because everything is like in the building, for example.
Did you have an astroturf on the roof like Jasper did, or was it?
Yeah, we had all sorts of things on the roof. There's like several different buildings. One had a swimming pool, the other ones had like astroturfs.
And so, what made you both decide to come to boarding school?
It's quite common from Hong Kong to go boarding around entering third form level. So I feel like that was one of the main reasons that I came as well. I also wanted to try the experience, and I think I want to go to university here as well. So I think this is a good first step towards that.
My brother got a scholarship to another boarding school in England, like 5 years ago when he came. So I was left at home, only child, obviously seeing how much fun he was having and like everything he was doing. So I started to look into it, and it just looked so amazing. There's so many more opportunities in England than there was in Barbados, as it's just a little island, and at Cheltenham you can do so much more, and it just really like widens what you can do.
So was it your decision?
Fundamentally?
Yeah.
I was the one begging my parents to come.
and before you came, what I mean, obviously you had a brother doing it. Did you have an idea of what it was going to be like, and how was it compared to your idea of it? Let's start with you, Rebecca, first.
I didn't really know what to expect, but I watched a lot of YouTube videos on like boarding school. Spent a lot of time on the Cheltenham College website watching all their videos that they have. And it wasn't exactly what I expected, but I got quite a good idea of it from all the videos I had watched before.
How about you, Jamie?
For me, I kind of like heard from others as well about how the boarding life was. I also did the same. I also watched the videos on the Cheltenham College website, and I was lucky enough before COVID to come on tour. So I got to see how life was around the college as well.
And was it a big shock when you actually started doing it? I mean, like, did you go into your own bedrooms, or did you go into a dorm, or how did that work?
For me, for my situation, it was, for us, they tried to put all of the third formers on one corridor and split into several different rooms. That way you can meet with new people as well, and then you'll change every term. I don't think it was too much of a shock. I kind of was expecting what was coming, but there were a few big shocks as well.
Yeah, like what? What things really surprised you?
The education system isn't necessarily the same. In my previous school, we didn't have to wear a uniform. And I also didn't realize how big the campus was.
How about you, Rebecca? How do you have any shocks?
Yeah, I'd never boarded before, never been away from my family for more than like a night. So I think, and I went straight into a massive dorm of girls, which was good because they always kept me busy, and it meant that I didn't really have time to like sit and think about the fact that I wasn't at home. But like at night, I'd obviously get upset about it, but I was just really homesick, not used to boarding, not used to like constantly going. There's so much going on. But eventually you get used to it and it's fine.
Do you stay in touch with home?
Yeah, I used to stay in touch. I think when I first got here, I used to stay in touch a lot more than I do now because I've gotten used to it and don't have to tell them like every move now because I've been here for so long. But I do still call my mom, like if something happens, if I just want to speak to her, I'll call them. But I definitely have like gotten used to it and don't feel like I need to talk to them all the time.
And how often, Jamie? How often do you see your family?
I at the moment see my family pretty much every Christmas and every summer holiday because the entry requirements are quite strict and there's a lot of procedure to go through.
Wow. So you have a big break from Christmas till the summer. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do at Easter and half terms and things?
My grandma lives here, so I go to her place.
How about you, Rebecca? How often do you go home?
Before COVID, I went home every half term and holiday, but now during COVID especially, there was not that many flights. They were so expensive. Like I kind of just, and I've made so many friends now that I kind of just hop around. Like I choose not to go home for half terms and stuff because I'd rather stay here and just like go to friends' houses. My half sister lives here as well, so I go there sometimes. I just kind of hop around.
That's handy. And is your brother here as well, or?
Yeah, he is. He goes to rugby, but he plays a lot of cricket. So he's got an apartment in Birmingham now, which he lives at.
Right. Quite a lot of families have apartments in the UK, or do something like that, don't they? Do you think that's a good idea? If you would.
Yeah, I think it is. Just definitely knowing that you have somewhere to go if everything else falls through. And I never had that before, and sometimes it is a bit stressful, like not knowing where you're going. So I guess having that is always good, just for like a backup.
Okay, I'm going to ask the same last two questions as the other group. How are you coping with the weather?
It's actually quite nice at the moment. It's not that bad. I don't know. I quite like the cold. It's just a bit dark sometimes. Yeah, but it's fine. I thought it was going to be worse.
How about you, Jamie? What do you think of it?
It wasn't as bad as I expected it to be honest. When the sun comes out, it is very nice because it's not like too hot and not too cold, and you've still got the sun, so it's quite nice.
Right. And are you both glad you started boarding?
Yes, definitely. I think that coming here, I've managed to learn a lot more things that I probably wouldn't be able to do in Hong Kong, and it also opened me up to a lot more experiences.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I made that decision because I've had such a good time and I love it. And I've got so much to do.
I'm just going to say thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us. It's been really interesting to hear how it's gone. And if you want to watch Queen Ethelburga, do stay on and watch. If you'd like to mute now and turn your camera off. And Queen Ethelburga, if you'd like to turn yours on. So we're now going to Queen Ethelburga's and meeting Priscilla and Kylie, I think, and Kevin, who's going to introduce them.
Yeah, welcome from Queen Ethelburga. So yeah, we've got Priscilla and Kylie here. They're both in year 12 and have been here for 3 or 4 years. So hopefully they can give you a bit of an insight into the boarding life. Hand over.
Brilliant. So hi, Priscilla, do you want to tell us where you're from?
I'm from Macau, and then I'm from Hong Kong.
Great, and you're both in year 12, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you want to start by telling us a little bit about the schools you were at before, and how they what they were like and how they compared to Queen Ethelburga's?
So the school I was in, Macau, it was like an all-day school, and it was like really small, so it was like really different from Queen Ethelburga's because it's like a really big campus, and there's like a lot of facilities where my old school didn't have.
Yeah, and I studied at an international school back in Hong Kong, and we took the IB system, and it was also for day students only, and everything's constricted within a building. So we have like the pool, the cafeteria, the gym, the basketball court, all in just one building.
Sounds like everyone else who's been at a Hong Kong school. Did you hear the other students talking about it? And what about what curriculum are you following at Ethelburga then, Kylie?
I'm doing the A levels now.
Okay. And how did you find transitioning from IB to A level? Was that a big shock or?
Because back in Hong Kong, I never get to experience the whole diploma program because I was only doing the MYP program because I was in year 8. So I didn't get to experience much of the shift. But I suppose we do less group projects with our A levels or GCSEs. Whereas I really have to do more assignments and stuff like that. But I adapted pretty quickly. I find A level more suitable for me.
How about you, Priscilla? What were you studying before? Do you know?
In my old school, we did IGCSE and A levels, but then I left the year I was supposed to take my IGCSE. So I actually came here and did GCSE, and it was really similar. And right now I do AS level, and I know that it's very similar to the one in my old school because we do the same exam board.
Okay, so the big question then is, why did you come to the UK?
For me, I always wanted to go to university in the UK. So then my parents decided that it would be better for me to come here early so I can adapt to UK better.
Yeah, and for me, since I was like a little kid, I've always wanted to experience boarding. I've also attended a couple of summer schools in the UK in different boarding schools. And my brother came to the UK when he was in year 8. And since then, I got really bored at home. And I was asking my dad if I can go as well. And after 2 years of begging him, he allowed me. And I came to the same school as my brother, which is Queen Ethelburga.
And are you also thinking of going to university here? Or yeah, have you thought about what you want to study, either of you?
I'm planning to do economics or management.
And I'm planning to take medicine.
Oh, right. Okay, so quite ambitious choices. And so do you think UK schools are better at preparing you for those sort of courses? I mean, they're really competitive courses, aren't they?
Yeah, they are better because in my old school they didn't offer economics. So yeah, it was better for me to come here because they offered the course that I want to take.
Yeah, and in the UK, especially with A levels and taking medicine, they don't only look at your grades and whether if you're achieving A stars or not. They also look at your work experiences or your other duties around the school, which I believe is prepares us better for what we want to do. And I think that's what's good about schools in UK.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really talked much about extracurricular activities and things, but presumably there's loads more of those here, as there are at Millfield and Cheltenham, than there were in your old school. Is that right? Yeah. Is there a big extracurricular program?
Yeah. So for example, for medicine, we have extracurricular meetings every Wednesday, and the teacher prep us with the admission tests, such as like BMAT or the UCAT, and they also give us case scenarios that we might see in our interviews, and we also have different duties around the school.
Oh yeah, and like duties such as like the prefects, where we'll like help around the school and step up for like we'll act like a student voice to communicate with like the school and students.
Yeah, and other opportunities such as the peer mentor or charity ambassadors, they help around the school as well.
Yeah, and that's I think what British boarding schools are really good at, isn't it? This whole kind of like, it's much more than just lessons.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So what about staying in touch and seeing your families? How often do you go back to Hong Kong and Macau?
So before COVID, I'll go back in Christmas, Easter, and summer holidays. But then because COVID, and then so I stayed for a whole entire year last year, as well as this year, but I'm going back in the summer.
Yeah, and before COVID, I used to go back every half term and every Christmas, Easter. But because of COVID, I stayed in the UK for the entire year this year. And last year I went back for a lockdown, but then I came back for our mock exams in May.
Wow, so that's quite a big deal, isn't it? Have you got somewhere to go when you're not at school, or how did that work?
So for me, my guardian company like will usually offer me a host family and I'll stay with them. But and then yeah.
Yeah, I do the same, but then I know the school also offers like Christmas. They allow students to stay over for Easter and half terms and so to stay in boarding.
So you really are living at school, aren't you, at the moment? And how do you stay in touch, like on a day-to-day basis with your family? Are you allowed to have mobile phones and things? Or?
Yeah, we are. So I'll text my mom every day, but then I'll call like my dad and my mom like every weekend. But then recently, because exams are coming up, so I contact them less, but I always like send them a text to update them.
I actually do the opposite. On a daily basis, I don't contact my parents that often. Maybe every week I'll call them, but not every day. And during exams, especially when we're stressed or when we just want someone to talk to, I'd call my parents or my siblings. And yeah.
It sounds like you've really moved into that. I mean, that's like what people are like at university, where you've really got kind of like you've got a bit of separation now. What's it done to your relationship? Last question, really. What's it done to your relationship with your family? Do you think it's made it tighter, boarding, or do you feel like a bit of a gap has opened up?
For me, it's definitely tighter because back at home, I'll be with my mom like all the time. So then there will be some arguments. But then because now I'm away from her, so then like there are some distance and then I get to do my own thing. She gets to do her own things, but then we still keep in touch.
Yeah, and for me, I'm definitely tighter as well. It's because back in Hong Kong, I used to argue with my dad a lot, especially on the ways we deal with different things. But when I'm in the UK and I'm alone, it made me realize how much I love my dad and how much I missed him. And so when I go back to Hong Kong, or when I went back to Hong Kong last year, I actually bonded with him really well. I went on occasions with him, which I normally wouldn't. Yeah,
it's a really funny thing about boarding that you'd think it would create a gap, but it actually often brings families very, very close together.
Great. So, as we've heard, many families establish a base in the UK to support their children through school and university. And in this second part, I'm delighted to welcome a panel packed with real expertise. From Barratt London, I've got Stuart Leslie, who's the director. And from Rosecut, I've got Chow, I'm so sorry, and a brain freeze there, founder investment advisor at Rosecut, and from Charles Ross Speechlys, Kelvin Tanner, who's a partner. Let's start with Barratt, and we're in a Barratt property up in northwest London. And Stuart, you're going to introduce Barratt and why we're here.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So let me just tell you a little bit about Barratt as a company. We have our little clicker here. Here we go. So I won't read through all of the points, but Barratt London is part of the Barratt Homes and Barratt Developments PLC. So we're the UK's largest home builder, and we've delivered over 550,000 properties now across the UK. So we're experts in regeneration in London and also in home building across the other counties in the country. I think for me, when we liken a choice of a school versus a choice of a developer, you want to have somewhere which resonates with you. Obviously, if you have local knowledge of the area, it's great, but you want to understand the confidence and deliverability of the education, or in our instance, the property. And we have a rich heritage of over 60 years of developing all across the country that we can deliver great quality property homes in any location.
What we were hearing is a lot of students, their parents buy a flat, so they've got somewhere to go at the weekend or to live in when they're at university. Mm-hmm. Why would you buy a new build rather than, say, a heritage London flat?
So, very good question. So you're right. About 40% of the purchases in London are purchasing for education purposes. So whether it's for a second home, first home, or for an investment property around education, that's really important. I think that the reason why people will consider new build properties first is because it's really a hassle-free purchase. So from the beginning, you have everything that's bespoke, it's all brand new, it's exactly as you want it, built and delivered. But also, if you're either renting the property out or you're locking the property up and leaving it, you have the assurances of all of the warranties, the guarantees and everything that comes from a 5-star home builder. So the House Builder Federation gives out awards for customer service, for after sales care, and we've received a 5-star recognition for the last 13 years. So really a developer that you can trust and rely on to deliver a property that will stand the test of time, really.
And really, you don't want your teenage child having to manage plumbers and maintenance, do you?
Absolutely not. I mean, look, we hope things don't go wrong, but when you build, over 500,000 properties, things do go wrong from time to time. It's the strength of the customer service team that's there to back it up. So, yeah, we're just a phone call away, and we take care of everything for the first 2 years, and then the structural warranties there afterwards as well. So, yeah, really a hands-off experience, whether it's your kids living in the property or indeed you rent out the property as well.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about where we are today?
Yeah, so here's our portfolio. You can see that we have a distribution of 12 projects around London, and we have got a concentration towards northwest London and that corridor from Paddington out towards the northwest. And we've seen that area really popular over the last 3 or 4 years for both for investment and second homes. The reason being that it's extremely well connected into central London. So from here you can go to Harrow on the Hill or Harrow and Willesden, and it's literally 10 minutes to Baker Street, and then from there into the rest of the city. So it's really, really accessible, but it's still affordable as well. So whereas the family homes and the traditional family properties will be in West London, perhaps Southwest London, in Northwest London you're getting a lot more value for money. And you also have access to the rest of the country as well. So whether it's the West Orbital extension into HS2, or indeed connecting into the brand new Elizabeth line as well. So really well connected, great quality of life, and some great schools around here as well, Guy.
Yeah, and I mean, I got the train from Euston, and it was 10 minutes, and that's effectively right. I mean, that's into Bloomsbury. That's like the heart of British universities in London.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we've got obviously world-class universities and schools around London, but you can see we've concentrated our development really from zones 3 to 5 and slightly further out, because people want access to the centre within 20-25 minutes. However, they don't want to be living right in the hustle and bustle of zone 1 or the middle of Oxford Street. So you get the best of both worlds. You can access whether it's the universities, but also the nightlife, restaurants, culture, and museums and art that is so prevalent across London.
So I'm thinking about our students who were on the panel earlier, and they came from New Delhi, Hong Kong, Macau, Dubai. If you don't know London very well, what would you make of this part of London?
So this is a really beautiful green area of London. So it's you come out of central London, which has obviously got your retail, it's got all of your museums and your commodities. You come out on the underground network or the overground network, and you're really accessing some green spaces and family locations. So for example, we're on a site here. It's 1,200 properties. It's the old Kodak factory, so it's a heritage site. It's got some history behind it, but we're turning it into a beautiful community and place for people to live and work. So it's really becoming, we have residents here already, it's really becoming a village in itself.
And let's talk about the investment side of this, which I know we're going to turn to Chandra in a second and have a further discussion, but let's get your take on it first.
So we'll leave the in-depth knowledge to the experts, but we're builders, so we find the land that we think are great locations, we build great product, and we deliver them to the customers. What we've found at the moment is that the demand is really driven by some fundamental factors. One is the undersupply of quality new homes, and in particular affordable quality new homes. So there's a lot of luxury property in London, but there's not a lot of property that's accessible and also good value for money as well. So there's really high demand there at the moment. There's obviously the increase in population that we have expecting in London. So by 2030, an additional 1 million people, that just drives that constant demand for good quality affordable properties. And the single most exciting thing that's happened across London infrastructure is the new Elizabeth line. So every 30 or 40 years, there's a major improvement in infrastructure across London, whether it be a new tube line, a new overground, or a new airport or something like that, airport terminal. We're in a unique position where for the last 10 years, the Elizabeth line has been under construction, and we're sitting here just 2 weeks before it opens. So it's really, the best opportunity for the next 30 or 40 years to find a great location across that network, which is obviously going to benefit from better access to the airports, better access to the centre of London as well. That will fuel both rental returns and also property price increases as well. So very, very exciting time to consider investing into London.
And it's a really good thing to do. We'll move on, I think, because the reasons why it's a good idea for parents with children in schools is something I think we can continue to talk about. So let's move now to Xiaojia and to talk about Rosecut. So would you like to introduce
yes, of course.
presentations first of all?
So hi everyone, my name is Xiaojia, or Q for short. I'm a CEO and co-founder of Rosecut Technologies. So we are next generation wealth management. What does it mean? I used to work for the big banks like Coutts and Credit Suisse in the UK, where they provide a white glove, a service to high net worth individuals, help them to set up accounts when they come over from overseas. The problem with that is that now it has taken a lot of paperwork and a long time. For example, 3 months to get an account opened while they're waiting to migrate, possibly invest for that. So I saw that as a opportunity and challenge at the same time, and turned the challenge into opportunity to build a digital wealth management company where we digitize and automate the process. Digital means that you don't have to sign any paperwork, it's all done on an app very swiftly, and automate means there's a lot of human process taken out of the process and for efficiency again. So I've always worked with international families and really understand their need when they come to a different country like UK, and what they have to deal with to set up financially, and what are the problems to avoid from day one before they become a bigger problem in the future. London is obviously the capital for education that draws a lot of families from overseas, from Asia, Middle East, wherever else. And so this is where the families have a unique challenge, such as what is the amount of money you should bring on shore to start with, right? So besides the consideration of buying a property, you may think about how do you fund your private school fees here, as well as your living expenses. So this is where we provide a service to help you to plan that all out. We will say, okay, based on your family circumstances and your plan, you might be better off buying a property and having an investment portfolio onshore. Without going into details of tax advice, there's a lot of benefit for you to bring a pot of money onshore for the next how many years you're going to stay here. So we provide onshore and offshore accounts to facilitate that with the FCA regulatory full license on me as a personal advisor, as well as on the company on a whole. So that's a quick rundown of what we are about, and a few slides to show what the app looks like, investments on the platform, and obviously everyone's numbers are different, so we can go into more details if separately. But Guy, if you want to.
Yeah. So I was thinking as you were talking, when families who are watching this are probably at the early stages. They're thinking about schools, they're thinking about universities, and they're thinking about properties. When should they start thinking about bank accounts and money?
Usually this happens sort of at the last step, at the prompt of immigration experts like Colburn. They were like, oh, I actually need to think about that. So what would really work for them is to thinking about the school alongside with a budget, right? So for educational consultants, you guys obviously talk to them about, do you want boarding or do you want day school? And that represents very different budget already. And they have to think about the one-off fees, such as paying the advisors, legal, immigration, education. So that's another setup fee. And opening bank account in London or UK takes some time as well. So you need a retail bank account and potentially an investment account. So I would encourage, families to really thinking about putting a budget together, together with educational plan, and test that budget against the overall family assets and future plans.
And that's something they could do with you, isn't it?
Yes, totally. Yeah, we are very happy to handhold people through that process.
And so you wouldn't need to come here because it's digital. You could start doing that remotely, like where you are.
Yes, we actually we have a lot of international clients, and we set up Zoom calls online, and it's very easy. Post-COVID days, people can just jump on a Zoom call and cover all these key points without the need to travel and to book a meeting, that kind of thing.
And one of the things we talked about when we spoke before was this question of whether you should buy a property in your name, or in your child's name, or what do you recommend?
Yeah, this is a very good question. So I think it really depends on the family circumstances. There's no, right or wrong answer. Typically, we would say depends on the child age and depends on the family's plan of who's going to come over. I'm sure Kelvin will cover that. For example, if the child is already older in the secondary school or at university, it might make sense to put in the child name. But if it's a younger child and that's going to bring a parent over, then may not make sense to put into the child name. Either way, I think the thing the parents need to think about is how do they retain control of these assets, right? Because financial education is a long journey, and you need to have adequate control and education at the same time until the moment where the parents feel fine. I think you know what you're doing. So interesting fact about Rosecut is 20% of our clients are university students. Mm-hmm. So their parents give them a play pot of money, be it 50K or 100K and upwards, and want to test them out. How do they learn if they can manage money well, and before they give over more responsibility and assets.
That's really interesting. And do you have financial education built into the app, or?
Yes, completely. So we have monthly market update videos to walk people through that, which is, I promise, is much more interesting than the typical banking stuff. And we have interesting articles and webinars on a monthly basis. And in fact, last December, we ran one with Monas McFarlane's on education to get people to think about all these things together. And again, all this education is existing digital format, not in the closed doors, one-on-one chat, in real life, because I think this gives much more flexibility to people. They can watch it, whatever time zone they are in, they have access to it over fingertip on the app.
And in terms of, say, a parent with a child with a Rosecut account, for example, does the parent have access to the account, or is it like a normal bank account where you can't, each person's a separate?
Great question. Another great question. So first of all, if the child is below 18 years old, he or she can get a junior ISA account. So that's £9,000 tax-free on any gain or income on a yearly basis. So £9,000 may not sound much, but if you accumulate over years, if the child starts at age 8, and that's £90 plus compound is maybe 150 or something by the time they get to university. So this is a very good sort of way of dripping money in, and the parents can have power of attorney on the account and can see how much money is in there, and parents can have their own account as well. So we would highly encourage parents to have their own account, even if they are not coming to UK. You don't have to be a UK resident to have an account with Rosecut. You can be an international client, and then give the child a bit of a separate pot for future planning.
Great. So what we're going to turn to Calvin, and then we'll come back to everybody for a sort of round table wrap up at the end.
Sure.
Calvin, do you want to introduce Charles Russell Speechlys?
Hi everyone. Charles Russell Speechlys are an international law firm. We're a full service firm, so assist range of corporate and private clients, and I'm a specialist in immigration, so help both kind of companies that are sending people into the UK, entrepreneurs setting up businesses in the UK, and then a big part of what we do is helping private individuals, so families moving into the UK. And kind of with that comes this sort of tie-in with education, which is I'd say one of the kind of main reasons people are choosing the UK.
And I mean, let's start with the basics. So for a student coming to the UK, there's a particular visa scheme, isn't there?
Exactly. So the UK have a very kind of reliable student visa route. So there's a student visa route and a child student visa route, and basically that functions by having universities act as sponsors for their visas
and schools.
Sorry. And basically most schools will be providing quite good guidance. They assign a confirmation of acceptance for studies to a student who then makes a visa application from outside the UK. Increasingly, those processes are being digitalised, so it's relatively straightforward. And then that allows the student to move to the UK. So that tends to be the bigger questions from an immigration perspective or around the family.
Yeah. So if parents want to spend time in the UK with during vacations, for example, or coming over to support them in matches and plays and things like that, how does that work?
So generally speaking, if you've got a child studying in the UK, but you're an overseas national, then you need to enter as a visitor. So the UK designate people either as visa nationals, which are the group of people that have to apply for a visit visa before they travel, and then non-visa nationals, so for example a US, Australian, European, who can travel to the UK as a visitor and basically be admitted upon that basis. But the key thing is looking, I guess, not so much at the visitor status, but kind of what you're going to do when you're in the UK. So for families, it's how much time do you want to spend, right. And making sure that you understand that a visitor can come for up to 180 days or sort of 6 months in a single visit. So not to confuse that and think, well, I can come and basically live in the UK while my children are studying. But it is perfect for people that are coming in to spend time in vacation, to watch, a rugby match or a football match, a school play, but planning to leave and not make the UK their home.
So what about if you think your child needs more support than that? What happens if you think, well, actually they're fine at boarding school, but I need to be in the UK while they're here?
Yeah, and that's really normally where we kind of step in is to talk through the options. So for younger children, if you've got a child that's under the age of 12, there's a parent of a child student visa that allows one parent to come and live in the UK, not both parents, which is important to flag, and it only works until the child turns 12. So if you have more than one child, as long as the youngest child is under 12, then obviously they can use that and benefit from that. If you want to move as a family, so both parents move, or if your children are over 12, then you're going to need to look at a different immigration route that allows you to come and be resident in the UK. There's quite a significant change in February of this year, which is that we did have an investor visa. So for high net worth families, quite a well-trodden path. While children were studying, was that kind of parents come across, one of them has the investor visa, and then the other parent and the children have dependent visas. That's been closed. It will be replaced with a slightly different category. So from hopefully the autumn of this year, for people that are coming to invest, that can show that they have an investment strategy that will lead to sort of tangible benefits for the UK. But in the meantime, it's a case of really understanding what the family might do when they're here. So the UK kind of visa system really ties kind of the visa you can obtain to the activity that you'll be undertaking. So if one of the parents works for an international company or their own company and will come and work in the UK, then there are work visas that you can obtain on that basis. There are visas for people that will be coming to establish a company, people that have kind of exceptional talent, a global talent visa. So what we need to do is really look at what the family are coming to do, what their kind of experiences are, businesses they have overseas, and how can we bring them within one of those categories.
So it sounds to me like the sort of classic, like the parent who wants to come and support. That's not really a category anymore.
Exactly. So it sort of never was, in that the investor visa allowed that, but obviously only for the pool of people that qualified. So yeah, it's really a case of managing and saying either using the visit visa or visit status and making sure that you're not exceeding the limits that are set, and don't face difficulties entering the UK, or yeah, to be able to come and live in the UK does require a visa linked to your activities, and it's only for children under 12 where's that kind of ready-made parent of a child visa.
Let's broaden it now back to everybody. And so, I mean, what a lot of people do when they're thinking about a property like this, or when they're thinking about coming to the UK for school, is it's all about university and thinking forward, really. So for many people, like, you choose a British boarding school because you want to improve your English, or you want to get culturally settled or prepared properly for the competitive courses, and buying a property is connected with that, in that you're thinking, okay, I'm going to be here for 10 years, maybe. Do you find, does a 10-year sort of property investment work well?
So, yes, in essence, yes, it's a low risk, long-term market, and if you consider, if you take the title registry data for the last 40 years, every 10 years the properties have almost doubled in price. So if you look, approximately 9.5% capital growth every single year, that compounds up, and it literally does almost double every 10 years. There are obviously peaks and troughs as well. If we look post-COVID, even if we take the top 3 agents, CBRE, Savills, Knight Frank, and the like, averaging out, it's approximately 15 to 20% growth expected over the next 5 years. And at the same time, the rental projections are also 15 to 17% growth over the next 5 years as well. So it's a really good time to invest. And also, we've mentioned about the infrastructure as well. But yeah, most people will purchase a home for an extended period of time, and it's somewhere which should be comfortable for the kids, somewhere that should be comfortable for the family when they come to visit, but also something that's going to stand the test of time from an investment perspective as well.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, actually, it's from a investment advice point of view, right? Like, there's another consideration for a lot of those families. Like what Stuart mentioned, property market, just like any other market, would have up and downs. So when I was having this conversation back in 2014 with my clients from China, they were saying, I was like, well, the property market is not really peaking. You're going to potentially lose 10, 20% in the next couple of years. And they were like, well, if I don't move my assets into a secure currency and country now, I might lose 100%. Oh, so 20% is not a big deal. And then we heard exactly the same conversation with some other nationalities where the local economy is more volatile, or there's a change of political climate. So UK is perceived by international investors as a safer harbor for their assets and succession planning, passing those money to the children. And I would say UK is, especially London, is one of the best property markets in the world. But that's not something you put all your money in, right? So if you have family assets of X number of million or whatever, you might want to divide it up into financial assets and real estate assets. The real estate assets has, stability and long-term orientation is a really nice diversifier from the financial market. But it takes longer term and it has low liquidity. So once you buy it, you don't want to, in and out and trying to do that. And where we have seen some clients got burned, frankly, in the UK doing that, flipping properties in without knowing enough details of the local market. Whereas financial assets give you nice income if you are living in your home, and also liquidity. You can take the money out, within a week. So I think family needs to think about both, ideally, and the overall real estate plus financial assets as a nice diversification from their home country.
So, suppose the plan doesn't go the way you imagine it's going to go. Like you imagine that you're going to come here, going to go to school, go to university, and then go back. But what happens if you decide you want to stay? How does that work?
So from an immigration perspective, the UK has actually become, I guess, quite favourable for people that want to come and study and then remain. over recent years. So we now have a graduate visa that's available for people that graduate from a UK university, and it basically gives them a 2-year working visa, sort of post-study, to allow them to really get some experience of the UK. And that's really important because prior to that, you would study in the UK and you can have a student visa, or you could be on a dependent visa of your family's immigration. You had to find a sponsor quite quickly. So effectively, apply for graduate jobs. If you have a sponsor, you can switch onto a work visa for that company and stay. And if you don't, then you have to leave. And there wasn't really, and that's very difficult because, not all careers have that kind of graduate program. Sometimes you need to get more experience in different areas, or sometimes people need a bit more time and a bit more work experience to be able to get to the level they need to be at. So that's really the first step normally. And then beyond that, switching into a working visa would be the obvious step. There's also startup visas for kind of new young entrepreneurs that have a innovative, viable, scalable business idea, which is very popular as well. But yeah, it's that kind of path that you would take, and that leads to normally permanent residence. So if you have a work visa, for example, a startup visa, you are on a 5-year track normally to permanent residence, and then potentially after another year to naturalising as a British citizen. So making the most of that time can be quite useful. And then I guess just switching back to the scenario where the family decide while the children are at school, we want to move the family to the UK. One of the benefits of doing that is if you're on an eligible visa, you can make that 5-year block of time that your children are at school in the UK count towards permanent residence. So they could all kind of graduate at 18 with permanent residence, potentially even British citizenship. And that then gives that option to say, well, if we want to go and study college in the US, for example, but then want to come back to the UK in the future, you've got the ability to do that.
I think that's very interesting because a lot of people talk about the UK as a springboard to the US, and actually that's one thing I was going to ask you, Stuart. Like, so you buy this flat, and your child's at Cheltenham College, and they're coming here at the weekend, and then you think, okay, well actually we're off to the US, or actually we're all coming here now, and we need something bigger, and we're going to get rid of this one. What's the resale like on when you if you 5 years down the line rather than 10 or?
So great question, Guy, and everybody's journey is different. A lot of people don't end up living in the UK, as you see. There's a lot of considerations for that. A lot of people either go on to other territories like the US, or will also return to their family home as well. But as Q mentioned at the beginning, the earlier you get into this process and you start planning for the future, the better. So a lot of customers will purchase a property even when they send their child to boarding school, and they'll purchase. So we have Smart Living here in Eastbourne Village. It's designed to be compact living, something like a halls of residence property, lots of storage, but it's an asset and it can start to pay back a rental return immediately. So it's not something that you need, it's something that you could consider keeping long term, but whilst the child is at school and through university, we'll pay some money back in the rental yield from that property. So the rental market is really strong here. There's not a need to resell the property. There's also the opportunity to take out equity from the property as well, perhaps 5 or 10 years down the line when the child then wants to go to the US, you can purchase the property there as well. But at the moment, the rental market and the resale markets are very, very busy. Of course, we don't know 5-10 years in the future, but 1 and 2 bedroom properties are always in high demand, so they're liquid, they're easy to sell on the open market, and there'd be no reason why there wouldn't be someone else looking to snap up a great property when you want to sell it.
I'm sure that's right. I mean, and London is such an international city now, isn't it? It's really not, in some ways, it's not like the rest of the UK at all. And that's been the huge change in our lifetime. So it's always going to be popular with people who are moving in or wanting. Well, no, sorry about that.
Yeah, it's not just education, but education is the second largest reason for people to purchase property. But the tourism market over here is really driven by people wanting to come, whether it be for shopping, for culture, for the West End, for museums, and whether it's Fashion Week or Art Week or anything else. There's so much going on in London. But as you also mentioned, it's a safe haven as well. So it's somewhere where people feel that they can put their assets, or they can come and send their children to school, and it's relatively safe compared to a lot of overseas markets.
And that actually was the last question I was going to ask you about moving to the States, which is that's a common thing people want to do. So they come here as a springboard. They come here for education as a springboard to American university. Is Rosecut a good product for that? I mean, do you have clients that are moving money globally around the world as well as into the UK?
Yeah, so I think talking about US is a very difficult jurisdiction in terms of tax regulations. So there are very few providers would actually be happy to deal with, let's say, with the US authorities on the tax reporting on their investments. And but there's a difference of a US citizen who's living in the US versus overseas. So if you're a US citizen living overseas, in UK or wherever else, Rosecut can look after them. But if you're a US citizen living in the US, then that needs a whole new different infrastructure. But what I would say is that if we're talking about non-US people at the moment, come to UK for sort of secondary education, potentially go to US in the future, there is a sort of tax implication. Obviously, you know, Calvin's firm could go into much more details on that, of what that implies to the family succession and future tax rate. So if you are not committed to live in the US forever and potentially pay 30% tax on everything you own, you don't get a green card. You just get a student visa in the US and potentially stay there for your education and then go somewhere else. You know, if you're not sure, you can delay the green card decision until you have to, right? So because it has a real tax implication on your assets. So if we're not talking about US green card holders or citizens or people by birth, basically we call them US person. For international people, there is this trend of, you know, international mobility and international fluidity. That's how I call it. International mobility are people who move countries, let's say, every 3, 5, 10 years. International fluid people are people who were in the US last year, UK this year, and off to Portugal next year. So they are such, you know, international nomad that they need sort of a centralized place for their long-term money. They get paid in whichever country they're working, and with local currency and spending, that's all fine. But any saving, if you live in that country, very soon you have a whole trail of different bank accounts that become a nightmare. So Rosecut is built for international citizens. This is why we have offshore accounts. You know, this is where your long-term saving all goes in there and tax-free on the return and income, and you just earn and spend your local money. And this is the most efficient way, frankly, for the international mobile people.
I feel like there's a whole nother webinar.
On the international
I want to talk more about that.
Yeah.
But I guess I thank you all very much. I think it's been a really helpful talk for parents who are thinking about sending their child over here to school. And obviously that's the beginning of a journey, and there's a lot more that could be said. There'll be, on our webpage will be downloads from all three companies and from the schools we met today. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
for hosting.
Traditional investments usually mean placing your money in a business which you have no control over, in the hope that they will pay a dividend each year and the stock grows in value. I'm here to explain why investing in an apartment at Eastman Village, a new community Barratt is creating in Harrow, is likely to outperform other investments by a considerable margin. I'm Joe Antoniazzi from Barratt London, and I've been helping investors purchase apartments in the capital for nearly a decade. FTSE 100 stocks have delivered an average dividend of 3.8% and fairly modest growth of just 9.5% in the last 10 years. Investing in a property at Eastman Village is a different story. With prices starting at $296,000, Barratt's one-bedroom homes demonstrate outstanding value for a London property. In the property market, gross yield is usually the go-to term, and at Eastman Village, apartments can deliver a yield of over 5%, which is excellent for London. But this doesn't tell the full story, as it fails to consider the return against the cash invested by the buyer, which is usually less than the purchase price, as most buyers leverage with a mortgage. It also doesn't consider the other overheads that affect the net return, such as service charges, letting agents' fees, mortgage interest, and dilapidation costs. When you consider all of these factors, the net return on investment for a one-bedroom home at Eastman Village is 8% versus an average dividend yield of 3.8% for a FTSE 100 stock. In addition to the excellent ROI, the forecasted growth over the next 5 years, according to CBRE for Greater London, is 21%. So even after considering overheads, an investor could make a 35% profit in 5 years, in addition to the 8% annual return. Better still, Eastman Village is a regeneration development, and research shows that similar developments in London outperform the average growth by 3.6%, returning higher profits than normal property investments. So how do you invest? Barratt London provides you with an end-to-end service, from consultation to completion. Firstly, book an initial appointment where we can help you select the right investment property. Next, we will put you in touch with a recommended financial advisor that can source a mortgage product to finance your investment. Once the property is yours, Benham & Reeves, London's leading letting agents, will source a tenant quickly, manage your property, and you will start receiving returns on your lucrative investment. And of course, you have the peace of mind that your investment home is built to the high standard that you would expect from the country's most recommended home builder. In order to take your first step towards investing at Eastman Village, book your appointment today.